Okay, so it's been a busy week with listings. Obviously, we started out the week by going through the residential listing agreement. That's the one that you'll use most of all. I said then, and I'll say it again, and that is that you have a couple of other listing agreements that you'll deal with. Residential listing agreement basically is just what it says. It's any residential type property, 1 to 4 units. And that's what we're talking about. When we get to dealing with apartment complexes or vacant land or commercial property or something like that, those all have their own listing agreements. So we're not going to take time to go over those right now because residential is the one you're going to use the most. If you have issues with any of the others along before we get to them, because we will have another class down the road that covers some of those other type of listings, but the residential is the one that you're going to deal with. Now, residential is exactly what it says. You live in the house or somebody's going to live in the house. It can be a single family residence. It can be 1 to 4 units. So even all the way up to a fourplex still uses that same form that we covered the other day. And if you have a manufactured home, it still covers a manufactured home. There's just a special little checkbox if you remember that you have to check. So anything 1 to 4 units that's will be used as a residence is what we're referring to right now. So that being said, a couple of things that we went through the listing agreement pretty thoroughly, and a couple of the disclosures that come down with it. I think next Monday, I believe it is, if I remember the calendar. I think Monday we go through with a little more in depth, a little more deep dive into the disclosures that the sellers and us as agents are responsible for. And so we'll kind of wrap up that entire listing thing as we get to that. But what I want to cover today, and we're going to use Mike Ferry Foundation to help us a little bit with a video, and then also some conversation among us. But I want to get down to actually the presentation itself. We went through it, and a couple of weeks ago, we started on property valuation, trying to come up with property values and navigating the MLS to try to find those things and getting with title to try to find those things. And we started with that a couple of weeks ago. And then we moved from there to actually the paperwork itself, so that you understand that, because without an understanding of the contract and the paperwork and the pricing, your presentation becomes kind of a scramble when you're there. You don't know exactly what to say. They don't know exactly what they're hearing. Nobody knows exactly what's going on. And we either don't get the listing or we're constantly answering questions that we should have answered to start out with. So today we're just going to talk a little bit about presentation. You have to know the documents. That's why we went over them in the order that we did. So when we finish up on Monday with the last of the disclosures that you have to come up with, we will have walked through that entire process. But it's important that you know that process, because you're going to get questions along the way. Hopefully not a lot of objections, but you will get some objections. You will get some conditions. We'll sell as long as, we'll sell once we, and things like that are conditions. They want to sell, but they don't want to sell right now. Objections usually are a result of us not giving a good presentation. They'll use an objection to slow down the process. They'll use an objection to kind of stall until they have a chance to talk to another realtor that might come in stronger and better. And that's what they want, which is fair. That's why we need to be the stronger and the better to start out with. So some things that we need to be sure we do. And this, I know we're uncomfortable with some of it, but that's okay, because there's going to be a lot of discomfort in your real estate career. And we talked about prospecting way back when, and a lot of people were uncomfortable with making phone calls and whatever it happens to be. But so there's a lot of discomfort, so to speak, but the more we know about it, the more comfortable we feel. But that being said, we need to be comfortable with letting people know what it's gonna take to sell their home. Okay, that sounds like an obvious statement, but we need to price it correctly. You need to prepare it for showing properly. You may need to do some repairs, Mr. Seller. There are things that are going to make the house sell more quickly than others. Can you sell a property that's distressed or has all kinds of problems going on? Absolutely, you can. However, if that's the case, then we need to modify and adjust the price. And we need to be prepared to talk about those things. You know, your carpet's really worn out. Are you planning on replacing that or maybe offering an allowance for carpeting or? No, we're just gonna sell it as is. Okay, just wanna let you know that that's, that's something people visually buy a house when they buy a house, not just financially. And so the more things that they're going to have to repair, the more deductions they're gonna make on the price of the house. Just wanna let you know that up front. Are you planning on, I was talking with one of our really good agents, Lindsay out of Canyon Lake the other day, and we were looking at a property that was in the lakes there at Canyon Lake. We were looking at one online and trying to figure out why it may or may not have sold and things. And the agent had a lot of pictures taken. And that made the property pretty scary. When you looked at the pictures, house was very cluttered. It was wall to wall something. And I'm not saying it's all furniture. I'm just saying it was wall to wall something. Might have been boxes. It might have been a file cabinet. It might have been a couch. Might have been a dog cage. And it just was item after item after item when you walked in. And then when you looked at they had shelving against one wall, and on the shelving it had. I'm surprised that the shelving was still on the wall because they had so much stuff on there. And even the things that were nice pieces of furniture, they had so cluttered. They had so many things on top of it, or one of them had a glass front on it with glass doors. And it's supposed to be some kind of a, I don't know, knick-knack thing. And it had so much stuff in there. I mean, the whole place on that picture, and that wasn't even going into the house. That was only seeing the picture. Looked so cluttered. And then as we walked further through, and we didn't walk, we went through visually, obviously, but as we went farther into the house, there was a hallway that was same colored blue as you can see on this Mike Ferry picture here, this background here. And it was just like that all the way down, including the ceiling. It looked just like a dark blue tunnel that you were walking into. And the bedrooms were all different colors. Anyway, the thing of it is that the appeal of that is not good, no matter what you think of it. There's not going to be a lot of people that come into a house that's like that, that's cluttered, that you see is so crowded with furniture and things like that. And then it has every room is painted a different color and things. And we need to have those discussions, and they don't need to be nasty. We can just let them know that the house will have a better chance of showing if we have some of this clutter out of the way. Do you have some storage unit or a shed out back or a garage that you can box up some things and put them in and get rid of some of this furniture that's here? Because what we need to do is we need to try to open up the floor plan a little bit. And we need to open up the space. We need to make people not look so crowded. It works for some, but from a standpoint of selling a property, the majority are going to be trying to think of what they're going to do with their stuff. And they want to not see somebody else's stuff take up so much space that they start saying that my couch will never fit there. My chairs will never fit there. I'll have to refurnish the entire property. So when they think those things, then they think that the price that you have established on it is going to be too high. Now, this was not a cheap house. Canyon Lakes is not a cheap area to be in. It was 1.1 million, so it's not extremely overpriced, but it's 1.1 million. And it had all of these things going on that would make it difficult to sell. Now, it was easy for us to see that because we could see it on the photos. And it was easy for us to think about that. And it would have been easy to talk to the person about it too, because actually it was an expired listing. Well, the reason it expired, more than likely, I don't have, who knows exactly, but the reason it expired is because for the price of 1.1 or 1.2 million or something, it did not look like a 1.1 or 1.2 million property. It looked like about a $900,000 property. And of course, the seller doesn't want to sell it for 9, but he doesn't want to do the work that would make it 1.1. So we have to cross that bridge. Cross it early, because it doesn't do you any good to have a listing that's going to sit on the market for, well, this one was on the market for 120 days and then finally expired. So it was 4 months that they wanted to sell their house, and that people saw it because it was in Canyon Lake, and people liked the idea of being inside the gates at Canyon Lake and the security of it and things like that. But something caused it not to sell. Now, if you saw the pictures, you could probably tell me what caused it not to sell as much as I can. It's not that I'm that much smarter than you or anything else. You can see those things. And when you see them, you need to be able to point them out to people. Is there something we can do with the boxes that are in this room? Is there something we can do? Is there a chance that we could paint that hallway to a neutral white or off-white or something, just to make it look brighter, make it look more open, make it look, and you can have those conversations. A couple of things happen with that. One thing is that they're looking for somebody to help them sell their house. That's why I am in here, is I'm trying to help them sell their house. Now, the way I help them sell their house is not to just ask them what they'd like to get for it and then sign the paperwork. That's not what helps them sell their house. That might help me get a listing. That might help me get my name on the board. That might help me get an attaboy from somebody else. But when I have it on the market for month after month after month, and they're calling me month after month after month, then I am not providing the service that I was actually hired to do. All right, so they want an agent that values their opinion, however, along the way. So don't be afraid to ask them questions about their house and what their thoughts are and things. And you'd be surprised how many times that when you say, have you thought about doing anything with that blue wall? It kind of makes it look dark to me. And they say, yeah, you know what, I've thought about that too, but it seems like such a hassle, and maybe the people buying the house would like it or something. Well, no, that's not what happens. Let's make it more neutral if we can, and move in that direction. But they do want to be heard. So don't go in there and just tell them all the things that you think right off the bat, but bring them in on the conversation. But they do want an agent that'll tell them the truth, even if it's not what they want to hear. All right, they do. That makes them feel more comfortable that you know what you're talking about. And if you go in there and you're going to do exactly the same thing and say exactly the same thing as the person that just had it listed did, and everything is exactly the same, then 4 months from now, they're going to be having that conversation with a third agent. And that's just the way it happens. They're looking for a person that's going to sell the property, not looking for a friend. So it doesn't make a lot of difference to go in there and say, oh, look, I noticed that there was this over here. Oh, I love Disney, and all those Disney nicky-nacky things that you have over there. Disney's like my favorite. We have seasons passes. We go at least once a week, and whatever the case may be. We're in that, we're kind of right in the middle of that right now, where people try to make friends, and actually they're not looking for a friend. I don't, nobody advertises for a friend to come to the house. Nobody makes phone calls. Nobody answers the phones for just a friend unless it indeed is their friend. But when they're ready to do real estate, they're looking for a realtor. And so we need to make sure that we're heading in that direction. Make sure you're knowledgeable. We talked about that before when we're putting together, way back to when we're putting together comps for the property. when we put together our comparables for the property to show them what similar properties are worth, when we go out and we actually drive the neighborhood and we know what the neighborhood looks like, when we can see the comps that we're using to tell them about the value of their property, because they know. If I tell them, well, you know, the one down the street, I know you want 1,000,001 out of yours, but the one down the street sold for 900. You know what they're going to come back with, unless I know. Because I've driven by it, because I've gone into the MLS, because I've looked up photos. They're gonna tell me that that house is not as good as theirs. For whatever reason. Well, you know, they don't have a view. Well, they don't sit on the water. Well, they don't this, they don't that. Well, I need to know those things ahead of time. So when I'm going out there, I need to not only know what my comps are by looking at a list, but I need to know what they are by looking at the photos, by maybe driving the neighborhood, by seeing what's going on in the area, by seeing what others are listed for right now and where they're located compared to mine. And so I need to know all of those things. So the more knowledgeable I am about the neighborhood and the house and everything else, then the better off we are from the start. And remember kind of what I said before, they want honesty in what you think about the house. And you're not gonna go in there and be brutal or anything like that, but at the same time, they want honesty. You know, our house has been on the market for 120 days and it didn't sell. What do you think? Well, I'm gonna ask them, what do you think was the reason for that? Well, the agent only held one open house. Well, I never saw any average. They stuck a sign in the front yard and that was it. I never heard from them. Nobody saw the property there, you know, so it wasn't getting any exposure from other agents or anything else. Well, I need to be able to tell them at that point in time, well, you know what agents do when they go show property is they pre-qualify, or they have a lender pre-qualify their buyers. And then they do a pre-qualification themselves and they find out what the buyer's looking for and how soon they have to move and all these kind of things. And we put a combination of what they qualify for and what their circumstances are and what their desires are. And we put all those things together and then we go on the MLS to do research for a property that might suit them, a property that falls within their price range, a property that has the number of bedrooms that they need, that has a view, that doesn't have a view, that's whatever the case may be, we do that all ahead of time. So that by the time people are coming out to the house, or I'm seeing the house, or I list the house, or I get photographs taken or whatever, we're putting in the thing, the information in the MLS that's going to most closely describe what's going on in your house. And so we'll be very honest with that. You be honest with me too. Are there things here that we should take into consideration and involve them in that conversation? Because we want them to feel not that we're their best friend, but we want them to feel that we do have their best interest at heart. We do want them to know that we care about the fact that they got a job transfer and they're moving out of the area and they have to be gone by such and such a time, or they want to get closer to kids, or they want to, whatever their case is, we want to use that emotion to help them sell their house. And what I mean by that is that if they have timelines and things, then I use those in my presentation. I use those when I'm talking to them. I say, okay, well, you say you need to be out of here by the first of the year. And right now we're on our average days on market is somewhere around 50 or 60. And they say, well, we had it on for 120. Well, you know what that tells me? Tells me one of two things. It either tells me that the price was not where it should be to start out with, or it tells me that the condition and location of the property turned out to be different than what people expected. You know, there's two things that sell houses. One of them is price, because you can sell anything if you get the price right. And the other is that the location of it. Is it in a location that's decent? Is it on a decent site? And location is different to different people. I want a view of the ocean, I want a view of the mountains, I want a view of the canyon. I wanna sit on a hill, I wanna sit at the bottom of a hill, I wanna be down there by that stream. But whatever the case may be, I want something with a piece of land that's big enough for me to grow my own vegetables. Everybody has different things in mind. So what does this property offer? And that's what we need to talk about. We need to ask them even ask them sometimes what caused them to buy the property in the first place. Oh, it was so cute and it was turnkey and what color were the walls? Well, they were just kind of a blonde neutral color and things, but it caused you to buy it, right? Because you could think of what you could do on your own. You could think of the changes you can make to make it your house and not just buying somebody else's house. And so that's an important part in selling a property. So we have to be able to walk them through that process. Now they're worried, they're anxious, they don't know you, or maybe they do, I don't know. Maybe that's not always a good thing that they do, but anyway, they may or may not know who you are. You may have just gotten them off of a phone call. You may have been calling the expired list or something and got them off of expired. You may have been walking a neighborhood and door knocking and came up with them that way and things. So nobody necessarily knows anybody, but they're anxious. They have anxiety about who they're going to work with. We've already been on the market a long time, or maybe not, but we've been trying to sell, we've been thinking about selling, we've been moving in that direction for a long time. And nothing has happened. I wonder what this agent's gonna do that's different. I wonder what's gonna happen. You know what? I hope we can get sold in time because I still have to be at my new job by the first of the year. And if I'm not there, then that means you'll have to stay here in the house and we'll have to get an apartment or something in the new. All of these things are going on in their mind. They may not be spilling those out onto the dining room table with us, but they're all going on in their mind. They're trying to think of all of the things that could happen bad in their life if we can't get this sold. So one of the most important things at this point in time, other than our knowledge about the house and the property and the marketplace in general, is that we have to be a calming force in that anxiety-ridden time for them. Okay, we have to nod your head, say yes, I understand what you're thinking, I understand where you're coming from. When they throw out these things, oh yeah, I can see where you're thinking here, but let me tell you what we could do to counter that. Let me tell you what we could do to work around that. Let me tell you what we could, and they want somebody who's the calming force who can say, yes, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, this selling a house can be harrowing. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not so easy. Sometimes buyers come to the table that probably shouldn't really be at the table and things. And we try to solve that ahead of time. We try to go through and evaluate the offers that come in. And you know what? Every offer that comes in, we're going to sit down and talk about it. I'm going to present every offer that comes in. I don't care if it's $1 or $1 million. We're going to discuss every one of them and the advantages and the disadvantages of each. And at the end of that, do you know who gets to make the decision? That's right, you do. You're the one that gets to make that decision at the end. If you look at all of the things that they've prepared for us, we have 2 or 3 options. One of them is that we can say, no, I don't want that. We're not doing that one. And you can reject it entirely. Number 2 is we can take parts of that offer and we can counter it out. And what I mean by that is we can say, the rest of the offer is okay. I love the purchase price. We can't deal with the close of escrow time because we have to move on such and such a day or after such and such a day. We've got tax ramifications if we sell before then. But whatever their situation is, but I let them know ahead of time that we can overcome all of those things. That's what I'm for. The reason I'm here with you, the reason I'm sitting here at the table with you is because if we can price it at a price that'll sell, if we can make the necessary changes to the inside, even if it's just organizational changes and things, to where it will sell, And I can handle the paperwork and make sure that all of the disclosures that you have to go through and fill out about the house, we will walk through hand in hand and get them filled out. My job is to make sure that we can move through this as smoothly as possible. Is it always smooth? Of course not. There's always possibilities, but at least if I tell them that ahead of time, then I have hopefully soothed some of their angst. Okay, if they say, oh, well, what if it falls out of escrow? Well, you know what? That's happened before. I'm sure that's why you even brought it up, because sometimes things change in people's lives. I had one happen the other day where we had an offer that was accepted and everything was kind of rolling through its thing. They did their inspections, sellers did termite work. We got all the way through the process just about, and they needed to take the wife off of the loan because there was some issues in her financial past that made it impossible for them to get the kind of loan that they were trying to get. And that was like 18, 19, 20 days into a 25-day escrow. And so things happen. We were fortunate to save it because we took her off of the loan and took her off of the contract and changed it around, and he was able to qualify on his own. And so we did it with just him. But we just handled it as it came up. Things come up, and they may or may not for yours, but that's why I'm here. Okay, I'm not here to just put a sign up in your front yard and then hopefully sit at my desk and keep my fingers crossed in case somebody calls. That's not my job. My job is to make sure that whatever we're doing goes as smoothly as possible. All right, so I think that I'm going to go to Tony for a few minutes here, and we're going to let him talk to us about the listing presentation. But the last thing, and I could say it on the other end, but I'll say it now just to make sure. And that is that your listing presentations need to be put together ahead of time. And what I mean by that, obviously you're going out on different houses, so addresses are going to be different, names are going to be different, and all of that. But in your mind and on paper, and maybe in a template, maybe something that you can do with your computer or whatever. Anyway, you need to know how you're going to go about your listing presentation before you even go out there. And so have a listing presentation in mind. If you want to make sure that they see all of the flowers and trophies that you've gotten in your life and to show how good of an agent you are, then by all means, get those things put together. Don't make it a scramble, because you know that anxiousness that we talked about on the part of the seller? If you're not prepared, then that anxiousness turns on you. And what I mean by that is that now you're the one that's anxious. You're the one that's flustered. You're the one that has the questions because you didn't answer them yourself ahead of time. So make sure that our listing presentation is prepared to the best we can. And we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But for now, I think I'm going to let you hear a different voice. And we're going to listen to Tony for a few minutes.
Hello again. Tony Smith here. We are back in your construction of the foundation. Have you had construction under progress? Is there concrete and mud and dirt and rebar and dust everywhere, or are you getting this thing ironed out? We hope you are really starting to understand this slab of concrete that we're trying to build for you. We want you to get in a position where this support system for your real estate career is really starting to take shape. Today is a really exciting portion of what we do, the listing presentation, okay? But I do have to recap, you know how it is. We are not going to let you loose on the homework. If the homework doesn't get done and the actions don't get taken, is there really a foundation? This is not a let's talk about it, hypothetical, wouldn't it be a good idea if theory. This is practical. So the only way the foundation gets built is if you are putting into practice what we do, right? But let's look at recap from our last session. Did you print out several copies of the pre-qualification script? Did you get that put in the places that it needs to be so that you can do it 100% of the time with 100% of the questions? Do you have it where it needs to be? Have you set up the practice and role play of the pre-qualification script with your role play partners every day? Have you been role playing the pre-qualification script? That gives you the authority and the comfort. Have you begun pre-qualifying any and all appointments you have? I hope you're effectively using the script, writing the answers, attaching the lead sheet to it. So now you're taking the step from step to lead follow-up to pre-qual. Now you've got a lead and a pre-qual and a formal appointment. Have you booked some appointments yet? We're sure hoping you have, right? That is the goal, right? Anytime we're not presenting, right? If you consider a day going by without prospecting or presenting, part of the opportunity was missed, wasn't it? Okay? We expect you to believe and understand that you should get in front of someone daily. And that should be your ultimate goal, to be presenting to somebody daily, right? I also want to mention, we keep looking at things that we can apply in the background for you to build the foundation. Mike Ferry TV, have you been watching? Have you been listening to the 2 separate podcasts that we do? Have you been exploring the website everywhere you need to? And then I made a note, our events calendar. I don't know where you are time-wise in this process. I don't know if it's January or if it's July or somewhere in between, right? But we have Mike Ferry events going off all year long. We have prospecting clinics. We have 3-day workshops. We have academies that are 2-hour little workshops. We've got our major events, the production retreat, the superstar retreat. We have events going off all year long. The question is, if you want to really support what we're doing here, you should get involved in some events. Get registered. Sign up for some of the events that we have. It'll take you there faster. Okay, so be sure and check out the events tab on our website. See what's coming up. Get yourself plugged in, would you? Good, thank you. So now we're back on the listing presentation. I'll never forget, I was sitting at an event in Orange County, one of my earlier events. This has been 30-some years ago. I was sitting at an event with Mike, and Mike asked us to write these 3 words down on a piece of paper. He said, write down the word prospecting. Underneath that, write the word presenting. And underneath that, write the word closing. And he said, okay, so audience, I want you to circle which one of those you believe is the most important activity of the 3. Okay, as a young, brash guy at the time, right? Knew everything about everything. Okay, I circled closing. I'm like, oh, you got to be a closer. Always be closing, right? I circled closing. And then I looked to the left and right, and somebody circled prospecting, got a prospect, right? Mike said, most of the room, you have it wrong. Presenting. Your ability to perform a solid, strong listing presentation is and always will be the single most profitable activity you're involved in. What are all the leads in the world worth if you get to a house and you botch the presentation? What is all that blood, sweat, and tears that you put into prospecting worth, right? If you can't present and actually get a contract signed. A really strong listing presentation makes the close super easy. You don't need to know a whole bunch of crazy closes. You need a strong presentation. So of all the building blocks in the foundation, I need you to put a real special star next to this one. I need to honestly have you consider that this one is something that you need to spend a lot of time on. All right? And remember we talked about the 180-degree rule? Look at what all the other agents are doing and go 180 degrees in the other direction. You're going to see that quite a bit in our version of a listing presentation. The first place you're going to see it is 9 out of 10 agents hardly spend any ounce of time on perfecting a listing presentation at all. Ask yourself, how much time have you honestly spent in your career so far? If you're brand new, it probably hasn't been much. But what if you've been at this 2 or 3 years? What if you've been at it 10 years? How much time have you honestly spent perfecting your presentation? Okay, now that you know it's the single most profitable activity you could be involved in, should you spend a fair amount of time on it? Yes. Okay, now that's on your shoulders. You're going to have to spend the time. I'm going to show you why. okay? But there's no way around it. You've got to spend the time developing a strong presentation, all right? So let's look at some points. We want to go through a series of points that we've got about you developing a strong listing presentation, shall we? Point 1, what does a seller want from the agent they hire? See, if we take it clear down to the bones, to the bare bones, to the basis, to the foundation, we ask ourselves, what does a seller want from the agent they hire? And if we have a really good, solid understanding of what a seller wants, and then if we're able to deliver that, will they hire us? Yes. So let's look at this little series of points that what a seller wants from us to hire an agent. Okay? A, they want the home sold for the most money in a reasonable amount of time. Well, we all know that to be true. Doesn't a seller want their home sold for the most amount of money in a reasonable amount of time? Why do we say reasonable? Well, if you sell the house in 30 seconds, is it natural for a seller to think, uh-oh, did I get the most money possible? It's sold so fast. And then at the same time, if it takes 10 months, are they concerned that they've hired the wrong agent? Yes, right? So a reasonable amount of time. Is that realistic? Should a seller be able to expect that? They should. B, I wrote down. They want to see our expertise and then tell them what it takes to get the home sold. They want to see our expertise and they want us to be able to show and tell them what does it take to get the home sold. That's what they're hiring us for, is for us to know what it takes to sell their home. All right. In your workbook, you have something called the plan of action. Okay, the plan of action, our Mike Ferry plan of action, is a description of things that are put together. Here's what we do to sell your home, right? And you're going to include one of those plan of actions in a pre-listing package, which we'll talk about today. Okay, but it is for you to start getting an understanding. What do you do to sell homes? And I think a seller expects that expertise. If you can't deliver that expertise, why would they hire you, right? C, they want an agent that will value their opinion and listen to their concerns, right? They want an agent that's going to value their opinion and listen to their concerns. Doesn't everybody want to be heard? Right? If I'm going to sell my home, I want my questions answered, right? If I have concerns, I'd like you to address those concerns. And I want you to value my opinion, right? I want to be heard. Wouldn't anybody? Don't you? Don't you want people to value your opinion and be heard? Natural, isn't it? The world walks around with a certain radio station on we always joke about, right? WIIFM. What's in it for me? Okay, that is the world operates like that. So your seller wants to know what's in it for me. And they deserve for you to be able to show them that expertise. I wrote down D, they want an agent that will tell them the truth even though they don't want to hear it. Okay, this is one separating factor with a lot of real estate agents, okay? But the seller wants the truth. They want someone that will tell them the truth. Even at times, they don't want to hear the truth. The truth about price, or the truth about they need to clean up the backyard, the truth that, if they don't paint that front door, it's going to be a problem. They want you to be able to deliver the truth. Many agents get very uncomfortable here, especially when it comes to things like price or condition, right? Or taking control of what they're going to do and not do to sell the home, right? That's why many agents overprice homes and never give the best advice of what a seller should do to get it sold. They don't tell them the truth, or they don't want to tell them the truth. Okay, they expect that. E, I wrote down, they're looking for a great salesperson, not a friend. Another major separation, right? Many agents, your competition, are out there running around thinking that the bonding approach is the way to go, right? Let's talk about what we have in common. Let's be friends, and then I'll get you as a seller. Right? The seller wants a salesperson. Did you know that you're officially a salesperson? That's what you signed up for. That's who you are. That's what they expect. They're not looking for a friend, right? They have their lives. You're a small window of their life. You're helping them get their home sold or helping them purchase a home. You are not a major portion of their life day in and day out, weekends, nights, evenings, right? They don't want a friend. They want a salesperson, and you have to be able to deliver what they want. F, they want an agent they can feel a strong level of trust with. Sellers want an agent that they can feel a strong level of trust with. How do we develop trust? Knowing the market conditions, knowing what it takes to sell a home, telling them the truth. Trust, truth. Telling them the truth about price, condition, what it's going to take. They want that, don't they? We need to have that in our presentation. They want constant, continuous communication. Seller wants constant, continuous communication. Do you know what the number one complaint is that the public, people out there in the world have with us real estate agents? Lack of communication. The number one complaint. I never heard from my agent. Boy, they signed the contract, took off of the driveway at 100 miles an hour. I never heard from them again, right? You have to be able to supply constant, continuous, good, solid communication. I know you can do that. H, they want complete honesty regarding the price. They want complete honesty regarding the price. It's hard. They don't like it, but they want it. Okay? Our presentation is designed for you to be able to deliver that. All right? I, they want an agent that knows about the best interest and feel like they have their best interest at heart. They want an agent that knows what the best interest is. What is the best interest for you? The proper way to present the home, constant communication, telling them the truth. But they need to feel that you have those best interests at heart. Right? They need to know that you're on their side. Okay? J, they want an agent who understands the market better than anyone else. They want an agent who understands the market better than anyone else. It's one of the reasons they hire you. If you don't know the market conditions, right, what's going on, that's a little red flag if I'm a seller. You need to know, right? And then the last one I wrote down, they want an agent who will be the calming force in a very emotional situation. They want an agent that's the rock, the person that's calm. They're emotional. They're packing up the pictures. They're having to walk by, those little lines on the door jamb of their kids' heights. It's emotional, isn't it? They're emotional, but they want you to be the calming force. They certainly don't want you to be the emotional one. Right? You need to become that calming force in the situation. That's what they're looking for. Okay? So now we know what a seller wants. Can you provide it? Yes. We have to be able to provide it in a way that they can accept it. All right? Major point number 2. This is the hardest one right here. This is one of the hardest ones for many agents to accept. Major point number 2. You must accept the fact that it has to become a canned, scripted presentation. If you ever want to be a great presenter, you have to accept the fact that it needs to be canned and scripted presentation. Don't fight it, okay? The hardest part of my time as a speaker and a coach for Mike for 30 years is understanding and seeing an agent over a long period of time, watching their income go up and down and up and down. Make some money, give it all back. Make some money, market goes down, give it back. And to see an agent do that for 10, 15, 20 years because they won't accept a canned presentation. Boy, it's just hard to watch, okay? I'm going to ask you right now, as somebody that's building a foundation, hear these words. It needs to be canned. Okay? The most highly paid people in the world have canned presentations. The best actors, the best musicians, the best artists, the best comedians, the best performers, the best business people. They have canned presentations. And then the ones that don't are usually the amateurs. Okay? Professionals have practice presentations. Amateurs do not. Please accept that today. Okay? 3, I want you to get the background for this. For you to adopt our presentation, okay? Mike Ferry created this presentation a long, long time ago, okay? And Mike Ferry worked for a small independent company. And if you know Mike at all, he's one of the most aggressive people there. So as a real estate agent back then, he went into the industry working for an independent. He could go out and find appointments. Aggressive, right? He'd go out and find appointments. He was getting beat. You know, the big franchises at the time, all the majors, were beating him. And if you know Mike Ferry, he wasn't going to accept that at all. So he went on a mission to find out, why am I getting beat and how can I set it up that I don't get beat anymore? Okay? And what he did is he asked a lot of people, brokers, agents, and asked a lot. How could I not get beat? And here's what he came up with. I need to create a presentation that, A, I need to know what questions the seller always asks and answer them in my presentation. I need to include what are the questions that a seller always wants to know, and my presentation needs to answer that. What are the questions they always ask? B, I need to know, how do they always object? What do sellers always object to? And I need to, learn and adopt and have the answers for all of their objections. So what do sellers always object to and have the answers? And then C, I need to know the market stats, how to determine price, and my presentation has to be able to deliver price in a way that they can accept it. So I need to figure out the market, how to understand the market stats and be able to get them to understand the right price for their home. So he created his listing presentation. And this presentation was designed to win against the competition. Would you like to win against the competition? As a new agent, if you're a newer agent, do you have some fierce competition out there? Are you going to need to learn how to win at a high level? Absolutely, you're going to need to learn how to win. So we've designed a listing presentation that is designed for anyone to win. All right? That's the beauty of this thing. The other beauty of it is we've designed one presentation that works for everybody. This presentation is designed, it'll work for a first-time seller, a mid-range seller, a high-priced upper-end seller. This presentation is one for all. So you only have to learn one presentation. You only have to master one, okay? And then the best news of all, okay? Point number 4. We have put this entire presentation into what we call the Mike Ferry's 5-step listing process. Okay, it's a 5-step listing process that is designed for you to win. Okay, and that's what the real beauty of what we've done is. Okay, so I want to go through the 5-step listing process for you so you can understand winning. And I need you to really adopt the foundation of creating, implementing, and applying a strong 5-step process starting today. All right, so let's go through the steps. The first step of the 5-step process. Pre-qualify 100% of the people using 100% of the pre-qualifying questions. Does that sound familiar? Our entire last section was about pre-qualifying. You spent the entire last section setting yourself up for the first step of our 5-step listing process. I hope you've done all of that work. I hope you've got the pre-qual. I hope you've been practicing. That step is so important because most of your competitors don't do it. So let's start thinking about these steps, okay? You have a listing presentation. Is it pretty safe to think that they have others that they're considering? Yes, the sellers are considering others. You're probably competing. If they have an appointment with you and they have an appointment with another realtor, is it also safe to expect that they see you at equals at that moment? Well, if they set an appointment with you and they set an appointment with someone else, you were good enough to get an appointment. So they must see you somewhat at equals, right? So you're equal. Equal. We ask you to take step 1. It's to pre-qualify 100% of the people using 100% of the questions. Your competition won't do it. You're one step ahead. Okay, you're stepping ahead. You're already winning. You're one step ahead. The first step of our listing presentation. The second step is a major step. Okay, mail or deliver a pre-listing package. Mail or deliver a pre-listing package. You've got to get yourself set up, which is going to be homework, okay? Your homework for this section is to create and get your pre-listing package put together, all right? What should be in it? Let's look at what should be in it. What should my pre-listing package include? It should include a list of 4 or 5 personal references with their names and phone numbers. 4 or 5 personal references with their names and phone numbers. Well, I'm brand new. Okay, did you have an old boss that thought you were great at what you do? Do you have friends that think you're very responsible and you're a good person? Did you have people that you know in the real estate industry that would write a reference for you? If you've been at this for 2 or 3 years, you improve your references as you go along. Okay. The next thing in your plan of action, or your pre-listing package, is your plan of action. So included in your package is a plan of action. We need to have you create that. If there's anything else you do or that your company tells you to do that you've decided to do to get someone's home sold, it should be included in there. Okay? And then if there's anything in our plan of action that you're not going to do under any circumstances, it shouldn't be in there, should it? Because we don't want you to mislead a seller in any way. Tell them the truth. Okay? Now, there's one part of our plan of action that I think you should be mandatory. I will talk to blank number of your neighbors. You fill in the blank. I will talk to 20 of your neighbors when I list the home and tell them about the property. Okay, I will talk to 25 of the neighbors and tell them about your property once we've listed it. That should be required, okay? All right, but you have your plan of actions included in it. The third thing in your pre-listing package, a copy of your track record or the company's track record. If you're brand new, your company has these kind of things. What's our track record? How long have we been here? What kind of transactions do we do? What's our history? You include that. If you're getting a good solid track record, include your track record. You know, it's not hard to get a great track record. The average agent only sells 4 homes a year. So as soon as you start getting to the 5, 10, 15, 20 homes a year, hey, listen, I'm selling 20 homes a year. The average agent here in town sells 4. It's a good track record, all right? So you include that. 4 on the list, a completed CMA with the suggested list price. Now, we want this included in your pre-listing package, right? This is the comps. This is the homes that you've decided to include that are comparable to the property that you're going. Many of the companies today, the MLS systems today, ask your broker. They've got really neat little things that'll help you design a nice CMA. We recommend that you don't overcomplicate things. We recommend that you include like 3 active listings, 3 pending sales, and 3 closed sales as part of your CMA, that comparative market analysis. We want the comps to be clear and clean. We recommend 1 page each. Don't send them 48 comps in some multi-level approach to a CMA. You can really complicate it with the seller. We want very clear comparable properties. We recommend that you look at, what's one that's a little worse than their property, what's one that's a little better than their property, and what's one that's right on the money in your estimation of value. And if you'll see this in our presentation, the actual scripts, we will have you present that CMA live in front of them. But in the pre-listing package, you want to include a really nice, clean, comparative market analysis with the comps. Just don't overcomplicate it. Don't add a lot of extra into what's there, okay? Good. Once again, on 5, I'll say it again, the net sheet. We should say, here's the price minus your mortgage, minus title, minus escrow, right? You're going to net X when you sell it for this price. You include that. Isn't that what's most important to the client? How much am I going to get out of this deal? You include the net sheet. 6, you include a completed contract. You include a completed contract, your standard listing agreement that your company use. You include that in there, completely filled out. Completely filled out. Okay, any concerns about this? The net sheet, the comps, the CMA, the completed contract. The price is the price. Is it going to go up because you see it? Is the home worth more when you get there? The home is worth what it's worth. The sooner we understand that the value of the home is the value of the home, the better off we are, and the seller is better off knowing it up front. We'll talk about it in a minute, okay? And then the last thing is all of your disclosure statements, whatever disclosures that your state or company require, right? So you've got this package put together. This little package is nicely packaged up that you get, and you mail or deliver a pre-listing package to the seller. It's going to have all these things, right? This is another step forward over your competitors. You were equal. You pre-qualified, they didn't. You're one step ahead. You send a nice, clean pre-listing package, non-ego. Okay, don't throw 98 photos of you and the dog and the parrot in there. Okay, non-ego. You're 2 steps ahead. Your competitors don't send a package over. Okay? The third major step of our 5-step listing process. You call back and confirm the appointment. You call back and confirm. Have they received the package? Do you have any questions about it? Did you read the package? Will the sellers all be there, right? Is 4 o'clock still the right time for us? The callback and confirm is designed as another place to find out about any objections they have, right? Hey, I got your package and I saw $469.9. That's cheaper than we thought. We wanted $550. It's okay, all right? And I see a 6% commission in the contract. Hey, we were thinking about a discounted commission. Well, I can appreciate that, Mr. Seller. And what it sounds to me is you're a very diligent seller and you absolutely want to net the most money possible that you can get today. Is that what I'm hearing? Excellent. Do you mind when I get there if we cover the net proceeds and the maximum dollars you can get very early on in our time together? Let's just cover it when we're there, shall we? Okay. Little note. Pricing and commission. So now you know. That comes from you calling back and confirming the appointment. That's step 3. We were equal. We took 1 step with the pre-qual. We took 2 steps with the pre-listing package. We took 3 steps with the callback and confirm. We haven't even shown up yet, and we're 3 steps ahead of our competitor. Are you starting to catch on? We're figuring out a way to win by strategy here. Okay, the strategy gets you winning, right? D, the 4th step of our 5-step process. Show up physically, emotionally, and mentally prepared. And I put a little note, early. Show up physically, emotionally, and mentally prepared, early. This is such a major factor in presenting because our competitors don't do this. You know, our competitors, they have an appointment at 4 o'clock. They get started. They're going to do a little work before they get on the appointment. They do a little work, working a few emails, couple phone calls, look down. Oh, I'm going to be late. Did you know that the majority of agents show up to a listing appointment a minute or 2 late? Do you know how horrible of a presentation it is if you start with an apology? Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm sorry I'm late. It was traffic out there. That is probably the worst way you could possibly start a listing presentation, okay? So we ask you to get yourself mentally, right, physically, emotionally, be there early. Should you fight with the teenagers in the car, on the phone in the car on the way to a listing appointment? That's not showing up. That's not right, okay? You need to create what we call a really solid pre-appointment routine, which we'll talk about in a minute, okay? But we're going to ask you to have a pre-appointment routine that is really solid, right? That will get you there physically, emotionally, and mentally prepared, right? But you need to do that because that's our 4th step. Now, here you are. You're 4 steps ahead because you're showing up early, your head's on right, it's game time, show time, ready to go, right? And then the 5th step, the most important major step at the end. You follow the Mike Ferry listing scripts verbatim. You follow the Mike Ferry listing scripts verbatim. All right? Verbatim. Any confusion with verbatim? I mean word for word. I wrote down, read them to the client if you have to. Bring a copy with you. All right? It's better for you to... I have a script. Is it okay? Mike Ferry never walks into a room that he's going to present without a script. The best people in the world have a script, right? The best performers, the best musicians, they have their script. You bring it with you. It makes it so much better. So now, there's 5 steps designed for you to win the listings. Will you adopt our 5-step process starting today? I sure hope so. Let's talk more about it, okay? Let's go on to point number 5. If you think that these steps, these 5 steps, do not apply to you, or that you have a better way, your ego's probably getting in the way. Okay, so really think about this. If you really, as you heard the 5-step system, if you heard our 5-step process that we use and you think, wow, those don't really apply to me, that isn't something I can see myself doing, I think I've got a better way. Okay, one of the things we know is that in the Mike Ferry system, we have been tracking numbers for so long, and we have so many incredible agents that have moved their way from no business at all up through the foundation, all the way up to high levels of productivity, that we have numbers that prove some things. And what we do know is that the agents that use the 5-step listing process oftentimes have some of the best, what we would call, hit ratios out there. And what I mean by hit ratio is how many listing appointments do you go on and how many listings do you take? As I said before, here at Mike Ferry, we're not going to stop until you learn how to get at least 70% of the listings that you go on. We want you to walk out with a listing taken. And these steps are a critical, and I mean a critical part of the process if you want to take your business to the level where 7 out of 10 times, 8 out of 10 times, maybe even 9 out of 10 times, you go on a listing appointment and you come out with the listing. And if you're already starting to judge it or critique it or question it, what is your percentage? What right now at this moment, how many listing appointments are you going on? What is your hit rate? How often are you walking out with a listing contract in your hand? Is it 40% of the time, 30%, 50%? The National Association of Realtors sees that the agents in the world today, they expect that about 20% of the time, an agent will walk out of a house with a listing contract signed. So the National Association of Realtors says that you go on 10 appointments. You're probably going to get 2 of them. All right. Here at the Mike Ferry organization, using the 5-step listing process, we want to keep having you work and work and work on this until you get no less than 7 out of 10 of the appointments you go on. Which is better? I like 7 out of 10. Okay. Let's move on to point number 6. If you really want to succeed at a high level and you want to build a solid foundation, you need to understand something when it comes to listing property. Number 6, create a solid pre-appointment routine. Create a solid pre-appointment routine. Once again, why? Because our competitors don't. So often our competitors are rushing over to a listing appointment. They're 2 minutes late. They haven't prepared at all. They have an argument with another seller on their way to the house. They have a fight with the teenagers on their way over to the house. They're lost. They get there late. Can you imagine walking up to a listing, knocking on the door, and saying, "Hey guys, I'm sorry I'm late, traffic"? So you have to consider, if you want to succeed at a high level and you want to build a foundation that's going to last for a long, long time, you have to create at some point a solid pre-appointment routine. Let me give you some tips, okay? Some tips. There's 4 or 5 different tips here that you should consider. A, got to get your mind in order. If you want a solid pre-appointment routine, you've got to get your mind in order. What do I mean by that? On the way to the house, should you be on the telephone? Should you be talking to other sellers, talking to your kids, talking to your staff, talking to your spouse? It's probably not the right thing to do on the way over. Could you be listening to an audio recording of yourself giving the listing presentation? That might be good. Could you be giving yourself using some powerful affirmations? Could you be having a little self-talk with your mind clear, right? B, if you want a good solid pre-appointment routine, practice your presentation in advance, right? If you've done the 5 steps, you've already, you've called back and confirmed, they've gotten a package, you've pre-qualified them, you have a pretty good understanding of what maybe some of the objections are. Shouldn't you practice that presentation 2 or 3 times? Roll through the comps, practice the scripts and dialogues, right? Maybe rehearse the objections that you might receive a few times. That's a good solid thing. If you arrive to the house early, which we recommend getting there 5, 10, 15 minutes early, and you get there, it's okay to sit in the car. It's okay to be in the car in the front of the house and look through your presentation, look through the comps, get yourself mind right. Maybe once again, there's some positive affirmations, right? I'm going to take this listing. I have one job, is to walk out of this house with a listing contract signed. I am going to follow these scripts verbatim. I need high energy and high enthusiasm. Why not have a little self-talk? What do you do walking up to the door? Do you have an affirmation? Why not? This listing is mine. I'm not leaving without a listing. Okay. I wrote down C, looking and dressing professionally. In our industry today, we know for a fact that what we would call the professional dress code is going in the wrong direction. When I first started selling real estate, if you didn't wear a suit and tie to a listing presentation, you were crazy, right? Nowadays, what do? Show up with a jacket and a rock star t-shirt underneath it, right? Jeans with a hole in the knee. I'll bet you that some of your competitors will be out there in that kind of attire, shorts, flip-flops. You think it doesn't happen? It happens every day. So do you have your appointment outfit? Do you have that, that rock solid suit and tie, or ladies, that beautiful outfit that you wear that's your rock star listing appointment? It's okay if you don't have a closet full of them in the beginning. It's okay, right? You will have a closet full someday. Mike Ferry, closet full of suits, right? You may not when you're beginning and you're building your foundation. Maybe you only have one great presentation outfit. That's fine, but you put it on. Right? If you want a pre-appointment routine that works, you get yourself dressed to the nines. You look sharp, you feel sharp, you're ready to go. Why wouldn't we do that? Right? D, ensuring that you have all the proper materials prepared. Take some time for the preparation. So often an agent will, have an appointment at 4 o'clock. 3:30, they go, oh, I got to get my comps together, get my paperwork, shove it all in a bag, right? Head over, it's all disheveled, messed up, right? The paperwork's all in disarray. Do you know how uncomfortable that is when you sit down at the table and you're shuffling around with papers? Maybe you need to practice putting all of your paperwork in your briefcase in a certain way, or in your folder in a certain way, and put them in there so it's all in the right order so you can take it out casually, naturally, professionally in front of the seller. Very important for our mindset. You imagine going and you lose your pen, right? Oh, where's my pen? I got a pen around here somewhere. Where's my pen? That does not set a good environment, right? So you put your pen in the right pocket or in your briefcase. Your paperwork's all in the right spot. It's all in the right order. That's, you get rattled at a listing presentation, and where does your mind go? Our job in the 5-step process and getting this pre-appointment routine down is so you dramatically reduce the chances of getting rattled. Now, can strange things happen? Of course they can. But you need to set yourself up to reduce those odd things happening. Okay? And then E, I wrote down, being on time or early. There is so much effect that being late or almost about to be late, you're in traffic, you're driving over, you're looking at your watch, I got 2 minutes to appointment time, and your GPS says 5 minutes from appointment, right? Your blood pressure goes up, your anxiety goes up, it's very stressful. If you got to basically almost run through stop signs for the last 4 or 5 blocks to the house, how strong is your brain going to be when you get on that listing appointment? You've got to create a pre-appointment routine that has you there safely on time. What if you got there 30 minutes early? Go drive by some of the other comparables and take a look from the outside. Get your mind right. Take a look at how the neighborhood lays out. Is there anything important in the neighborhood that you need to know? Close to the freeway, close to the schools. Is there anything else you can do? A little research. If you get there early, you can do that. If you get there late, can any of that happen? No. So what I need you to understand is these are important. You got $7, $8, $10, $12, $15, $20,000 on the line. Are you going to take a chance by not having a pre-appointment routine and a 5-step process? You got to give it your best shot, don't you? Okay, so the Mike Ferry sales system is designed to have you win by steps. So take the natural steps and you can win listings more and more and more often. To be a great presenter, you have to understand that first impressions are so critical. The quality of your eye contact. Can you smile? Your ability to nod your head. Have you ever been critiqued on your handshake? You ever shake hands with a wet fish? Boy, that's always fun, right? You ever shake hands with somebody that's a wet fish? Ooh, gosh. You ever shake hands with somebody with that really aggressive grip that breaks the bones in your hand? Those aren't good. First impressions. Are you able to make eye contact with people? Are you able to smile in public? You suited up to the nines. Don't be casual, okay? I have to tell you that your competitors are getting more and more casual as time goes on. When I first started selling real estate, everyone showed up in a suit and tie to present. Ladies dressed to the nines every time. Nowadays, hole in the knee, loafers, no socks, t-shirt under a blazer with a rock band under it. This is a professional presentation. If you want to beat your competitors, first impressions are critical. Are your fingernails trimmed? Is the car clean? Are your materials all clean and neat and organized? You can win so many presentations just by setting it up with the professional image. Make sure you have that. Now, you don't need to have 98 suits lined up in the closet yet. You maybe need to get your professional presentation outfit. Maybe you have one great suit that you use. It's okay if you have a listing presentation, go put it on. Ladies, you don't need, $28,000 worth of clothes. Hopefully, yes, right, ladies? Okay? But the truth is in the beginning, you need to understand, what am I trying to present? What's the first impression? I know you can create that, okay? 8, be energetic and enthusiastic during the presentation. Okay? Be energetic and enthusiastic. Here's what we know. We know that energy and enthusiasm with a little bit less of a good delivery on script can win the listing a lot, right? Like your energy and enthusiasm, even if the script is a little rocky and you're a little bumpy and it's not like perfectly delivered, can still win listings at a high level. Imagine if you can put high energy, high enthusiasm, and a masterful script. Now you're rocking, right? Okay? But what doesn't work, right, is low energy and low enthusiasm. Well, Tony, I don't have a lot of natural enthusiasm. Fake it. Okay, you're going to have to at some point learn how to fake enthusiasm because it's required. The seller wants it. The seller needs to have that energy and that enthusiasm coming forward. That's what they're looking for. They expect it. So you need to understand showtime and turn the switch on if you need to turn it on. All right? It's something that many people need to develop, energy and enthusiasm. How would you grade yourself on yours? Can you ramp it up a few notches for a presentation? Please do. The seller deserves it. All right. Number 9. There's a direct correlation between knowing what to say and your ability to show up and do your job. Sellers buy the authority of a canned presentation. Okay. There is a direct correlation between knowing what to say and showing up and being able to do your job. And, the sellers want that authority. A canned presentation gives you that authority. In your workbook is our listing presentation. The scripts and dialogues are all laid out. We have a 1-minute, a 5-minute, a 20-minute presentation. We have all of the objection handlers, which we'll get to in the next segment, okay? But what you need to recognize is your approach from here on out is to develop and master that dialogue, right? Thank you so much for having me over. I am so excited about getting your home on the market and getting it sold. Do you mind if I take a quick look at the home? And I'd love for you to set up at the kitchen table. I want to go see the home. I'll be back in a couple minutes, and I'm really excited about a great presentation. It's canned, right? To start our presentation, I wrote down 3 really important questions. Number 1, do you absolutely have to sell this home? Number 2, will you price your home at a price that will cause it to sell, or do you want it to sit on the market for a long period of time? Number 3, do you want me to go ahead and handle the sale for you? It's all canned. Okay, it's not complicated, but it's all canned. Right? So this is where your background work is going to have to kick in, learning those scripts and dialogues. 10, having a strong knowledge of the MLS stats. Okay, your ability to have a strong knowledge of the MLS stats. Things like days on the market. Days on the market. What are the average days on the market today? Total number of listings available. Do you know how many homes are actively for sale in your marketplace today? The total number of new listings per month. How many new listings per month are coming on the market each and every month? Total number of homes that sell per month. Total number of homes that sell per month. That is part of your research and background work that you need to do in your MLS. The good news is all the MLS systems today, they make it easy. They have a stats tab. There's a place that you can pull up the stats. It's pretty easy. It's your job to study and learn those and understand those. But you need to have a strong knowledge of the stats, because in your presentation, there's places where you can introduce those stats that will give you the authority that you need, especially as a newer agent. If you're a newer agent just building this foundation, your knowledge of the stats can cause you to elevate in terms of authority. Got to spend the time and learn those stats. I wish I could do it for you. You've got to spend the time. 11. A great presentation requires asking questions versus making statements. A great presentation requires asking questions versus making statements. If you look and read through, which is part of homework this week, if you start really involving yourself in our presentation, if you look at it, the majority of the entire presentation is nothing but questions. Question after question after question. We don't make big, broad, sweeping statements. That's why our listing presentation is so powerful, because the competitors that come in and compete against you, they come in and they make these big, broad statements the whole time. Let me tell you about my marketing plan. Let me tell you about why you should hire me as an agent. Let me spend an hour and tell you about my company, right? Let me tell you how I determined the price of your home. And all we do is come in and have you ask questions, right? And the questions then are all designed to take the seller from the start to the end in one presentation. If you look at our script, right? Our script is designed to take the seller from the starting point through the comps, through your knowledge of value, all the way to the landing point, which is a signature at the end. And the beautiful part, it's a 20-minute listing presentation, right? You know, many of our best agents are taking listings in less than 30 minutes over and over and over. We actually have a 1-minute listing presentation, which you'll see on those scripts and dialogues. That 1-minute listing presentation, 1 minute. You know, it is so fun to see an agent for the first time get a listing in a minute or less. You talk about exciting, okay? We get these calls all the time. We have a coaching client. Tony, you won't believe this. Oh my gosh. I went to the house. I asked those first 3 questions. They said yes, yes, yes. I pulled out the contract. We signed the contract. Better yet, we ask you to send the pre-listing package over, right? It's part of the process. In that package, the contract is in there completely filled out. There's the CMA, the net sheet, right? The contract. Okay? Think about this. Sometimes you're going to find yourself where you walk into the house and there's your contract sitting on the edge of the table, signed and filled out already. It's a no-minute presentation, okay? If you use the 5-step process, it can have you win in ways that right now might seem unimaginable. But it's so true. If you're suited up right, dressed professionally, nails clean, good smile, good handshake, quality materials, you've used our 5-step process, you have confidence, your head is there, right? You sit down, you have a presentation, you go through the script. You become so obviously the right choice for the seller. Like it just becomes obvious. Can you appreciate some of the things that probably go on at listing presentations? Show up 10 minutes late, didn't bring the CMA or the comps, didn't ask them anything about where they're going or why. Start making big, bold statements, all ego-based, right? The poor seller is repulsed by that whole thing. You can imagine some of the things that they go through. Our design is the 180-degree, the opposite side. Well, we've all heard the old adage, right? Telling is not selling. Questions are selling. Telling someone is not selling. Questions is selling. Number 12, you must begin putting in the work to perfect your presentation effective immediately. You must put in the work to perfect your presentation effective immediately. And on 12, I wrote something down, okay, which is part of your homework too, by the way, okay? From this day forward, you either have a live presentation, which I hope you have one today, a live formal listing presentation. 4 o'clock, you're going to meet Bob and Mary Smith to list their home, right? You either have one of those or you don't. You either have a live one. If you have a live one, of course, you're going to get a chance to practice your presentation from start to finish because it's live. You're using the 5-step process. But if you don't have a live presentation, I'm going to ask that every day you start practicing a presentation. It's so simple to do today. You can set yourself up to practice a presentation. So you take your phone out. You put it on selfie video mode. You prop it up across your desk, right? You set it up. You've got your script in your hand, which we recommend, right? You take this script, you've got it in your hand. You get to read it, right? Thank you so much for having me over. I'm so excited about getting your home on the market and getting it sold. Do you mind if I take a quick look at the home, right? You start right there. Now to begin my presentation, I've written down 3 really important questions, okay? Number 1, and you put the video on. And you roll all the way through it practicing. Remember, it's really important. Hand gestures, head nods, body language, nodding your head, smiling. That all comes in becoming an expert presenter, right? But you can have high energy, take our script, run through it, you can read it to the seller, and you're going to win at a high level as a new agent with building a foundation. But I want you to practice one every single day. It only takes 15 minutes to practice it. And then I want you to go back and watch it. So you watch yourself. You'll get better and better and better at it every day. Okay? So that work has to be done on your part. I wish we had 30 hours today. We could spend 30 hours on this presentation. All right? Here's the homework. Now this is where it gets tough, where remember you promised me work ethic? You promised you were going to be coachable. You promised that you were going to stay on top of the homework. That begins here and now, okay? Number 1, write out our listing presentation. Get a scratch pad. Take the scripts that are in your workbook. They're all there. Take the listing presentation. Write it out completely every day for 30 days. I want you, yes, it's tedious. Yes, it takes a lot of work. I get it, right? Write it out every day for 30 days. At the end of 30 days, you're going to know more about our listing, the words. You're going to know the words inside out, backwards and forwards. It's almost impossible to not know the words. Okay? Write it out every day for 30 days, starting today. 2, implement 1 live or 1 practice presentation every day you work. So if you work, you either have a live one or you practice. One day you practice with a role play partner. Find another agent in the office. Your spouse, your kids, let them be the seller. Practice it once or put that phone up and practice at least once all the way through. And I mean everything from the pre-qual all the way through the script to the close. Okay? And practice a positive result. Practice you getting the contract signed every time. It'll help your confidence. 3, you've got to create your pre-listing package. Okay, your assignment for this section, you've got to create this package. I need you to get your references, right? I need you to get the company history or your company track record. Get it put together. No ego, all right? I need you to get it set up where you're able to put the CME. Many companies have these tools to help you, where you can put the comparative market analysis in. You need to learn how to do the net sheet and have that there, right? I need you to put together your pre-listing package so you're prepared. We're starting to get appointments now. We need to have you get a pre-listing package either mailed or delivered starting today, okay? It's okay if you deliver it the day before. Hey, I want to stop by. I've got a pre-listing package. I want to put it in your hand. I am so excited about our appointment tomorrow. Would you do me a favor and read every page of that? And I can't wait to see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. It's okay, right? You've got to get your pre-listing package together. And then number 4, go through our plan of action, also in your workbook, and look at every step of the plan of action and work to understand it and make sure that it's something you do to get a home sold. That is a bunch of homework for the foundation, which is our listing presentation. You've got a lot of work to do in this segment. You're going to have to put your back into it and get the work done. Thanks for your time today. This is a big one.
Okay, lots of good stuff there. I hope that y'all have a chance to practice listing presentations every week. Best way to practice it is in front of somebody that is actually potentially giving you a listing, obviously. And so that's the best way to practice. But the one thing that he hit on, and well, several things, but one of the things that he hit on is that's really important, and that is that we kind of touched on it to start out with, but that is put together whatever it is you're going to do. Everybody's going to be a little bit different with their listing presentation, and listing presentations actually are going to be a little bit different too, because someday you're going to go out and you're going to be listing a house for your aunt. And that might be a different listing presentation than somebody who called from out of town who's an investor who wants to sell a property. And that might be a little bit different from the people that you were at an open house at the other day, and they came up and they said they needed to list their property. And so there's different kinds of things that you need to put together. But if you put together kind of almost in cement your basic information, when I go out and do a listing, it's going to have a what? Obviously, it's going to have a CMA. It's going to have a net sheet to show them that if we price it this way, this is what you're going to walk away with, subject maybe to what your payoff is on your mortgage. These are the things, these are the properties that are in the area, what they've sold for, and be able to explain those things, be able to walk through every one of those things individually. And put that together. If you've got things that you want to talk about the community, that's terrific. Those are nice when you're sending things to when you're sending things to people out of town or people out of the area. You know, there are investors that have properties here in California that live in Georgia or Nebraska or South Dakota or wherever. It's nice to send off something that makes it look like you know what you're doing and that you know what to look for. One of the things on the MLS that I always encourage people to do, and I did that when we covered navigating the MLS, and that is that there's, when you go to your main dashboard on CRMLS, there is a button on there called InfoSparks. And we've talked about InfoSparks before, so that probably is familiar to you. But I would encourage you to get on InfoSparks. And when you get on InfoSparks, one of the things it's going to say is it's going to give you a city. Okay, I'm going out to take a listing in Glendora or whatever. So you type in Glendora in the search bar and then look down below at all the information that you can get about Glendora and figure out how much of that information you think might be important to the people that you're working with. It tells you it tells you everything from the average sales price to the how many days on the market to what's the price per square footage average, how many sides have closed in the last month, how many, it gives you a lot of different things. And I would encourage you to go to that every time you're getting ready to go out on a listing appointment. Go to InfoSparks, type in that area, type in that city, type in that county, type in that whatever you have to type in, and it will provide you numbers. Now the numbers, by the way, come from the MLS. Right, that it's an InfoSparks, it pulls from the MLS. So it's only going to give you realtor generated information. If you feel like you can't get together your right comps and things, or enough of them or whatever, then look at your title company profile that you had pulled ahead of time. You pulled that before you even started the listing process. And in there, they will have comparable sales. Now, their comparable sales are a little weird because they don't give you the same type of house. They just give you a mile or mile and a half or 2 mile radius, depending on how many properties are in the area. But and so you might get a mobile home next to a mansion or next to a whatever, next to a 7-Eleven. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, it gives you all of the sales. But go through that list of sales. There might be 20 of them that are comped on there. And go through and find out if there are any that are in your neighborhood that are close to the same thing. That might be a price that was determined by an owner and a buyer that didn't have anything to do with a realtor. So, or an attorney handled it through some other kind of a probate situation or something. So maybe things are handled that we don't they're not reflected on the MLS because the MLS is a realtor generated. It is just realtor generated. So if as a realtor, I listed something in the MLS or sold something, then it would be in there. But if not, then it just wouldn't be in there. So anyway, pay attention to all of those things. But by the time you go out there, the best thing you can do, period, the best thing you can do is to really know that area. That is the thing that kind of cements confidence and stuff. If you know that area, if you know that neighborhood, if you know what's going on right now, go out ahead of time by a few minutes. If you have a 10 o'clock appointment today, you're late, it's 11:33. But if you have an appointment this afternoon at 4 o'clock, go out at 3:30, drive the neighborhood. Look and see if there's anything going on out there that you need to know about. If there's a FSBO, call that FSBO, ask them what they're asking for the property. And when they say, oh, well, 700,000, you go, okay, I was just curious because I'm getting ready to list one on an adjacent street or 2 blocks over or whatever. And I just, that might also tie you into that FSBO. Oh, well, how much are you gonna list it for? Well, I don't know, I'm going there for the first time. Would you like me to get back to you after that? Yeah, tell me what they listed for. So it may create another thing, but what it creates more than that is when you go over, the owner of the property that you're going to probably has seen that sign up out front. And if you already have the answer, when he says, well, how much are they selling there for? And you can say, oh, 700,000. Now you know, right? You know, you show that you know what's going on in the neighborhood. Those that are down the street, you're gonna tell them about when you do comps. You're gonna drive the neighborhood to see that the one down the street that sold for quite a bit less didn't have any yard, which it might not show when you look at the regular MLS things, but know what you're talking about when you get there. That's the most important thing you can go out there with is knowledge. You know, there's basically 3 things that we do in real estate as a realtor. And the first one is to educate. All right, and we're educating them on the neighborhood, we're educating them on what's going on, we're educating them by walking through the process of what we're gonna do to sell the property. And we're educating them on that whole process. That relieves what I talked about earlier as far as the anxiety, and it also establishes a level of confidence that they go, oh yeah, well, Laura can take care of that for me. I know. She just sounds like she's the person for the job because of what you say and how you present yourself. And the second thing that you have to do, and you have to convince them that you're going to do the best you can for them, and that's negotiate. So we educate and then we negotiate, right? We negotiate deals. We help them negotiate deals. We get the offers, we sit down with them. And then the last thing is that once we're under contract, we facilitate. So educate, negotiate, and facilitate. What you're doing is facilitating all the things that have to happen during that contract period. All of the transactional items that have to happen, all inspections, all those things. I'm taking care of all those things. Make yourself look like you're worth what you're getting paid. Right? Don't be that person that throws up the sign. Okay, we're done for today. Everybody can have a good weekend, either working or opening houses or going to the beach. I don't know. Whatever your plans are, have a good weekend. Let's see, I was looking Monday's class. We are going to go, I think I told you before, but we're going to do a little bit deeper dive into the disclosures that have to do with your listing. And so we're going to go through those. And then I noticed I was looking at the calendar a couple minutes ago and it said that I think it was a misprint or something. So I'll just correct it so that we know. But that is that I think it says sellers pre-qualification or something. And we just did that last Tuesday. And so we're not going to do it again this Tuesday. What is supposed to be on there is it's supposed to be objection handling. And so we're going to go through, on Tuesday, we'll be going through objection handling instead of what it says on their seller's pre-qual. So I think that covers it. If you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, if you have anything that's going on during the course of the next few days or anything, I'm around. You know how to get a hold of me. And you can do that. So have a good week.
Thank you, Terry.
You're
Have
welcome.
a good weekend. Bye all.
Yeah.